welcome to another edition of MHQ's Foundation 101 webcast, where mini-series oblige, we are in the middle of a three-part series on UAE Foundation and how the market has been maturing. I'm joined as usual by Kat Zagati. Kat, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, and very topical, because we are in the middle of what we call a momentum building use of foundation. We'll go through some of the numbers. So what is the topic of the day specifically?
Okay, sure. So we will discuss today the consequences of the UAE being a fast-growing market.
Yep.
You will recall, Jan, we discussed on our last webcast that there is a rapid growth in the UAE structuring market, which is obviously a positive development, right?
It's
But there
amazing.
but there is a flip side of that, and I would say a concern as well, as nowadays there are several opportunistic providers in the market with no relevant experience and or even understanding of fiduciary structures, especially when it comes to foundations. So having said that, Jan, I wanted you to explain to us how this happened. I mean, how did these inexperienced providers end up flooding the market?
So, I mean, it's all about the UAE having recognized there was an opportunity, the market wanting to consume, and of course that attracts people. Some of them are well thought of, experienced from abroad or here, and they grow into this market gradually. Others just jump and go at it, let's say, a little bit more commercially. So if you look at the numbers, you see overall in the UAE, there is almost 2,300 foundation as of today, just under 1,800 active foundation across DIFC and ADGM. That's an amazing number. And if you look at the number of registration last year, where it really accelerated, you saw 708 in DIFC, ADGM, and more than 850 in the jurisdiction at large. We predict that in the UAE, there will be around 1,100, 1,150 this year. So clearly, there is a demand for a product that is sophisticated, that is interesting, etc. And this attracts pretty much everyone, but unfortunately also their mothers. So if you look at specifically granularly, the issue to us, at least the way we see it and what clients report to us, is lack of understanding of technicalities and of capabilities across the board service these entities. And this comes from numbers. If you look at the numbers of CSPs in ADGM, for example, there's around 43 CSPs that are currently administering foundation. That's wonderful. That's great. We're very happy for that. But only 6 firms administer more than 25 foundations. And MHQ leads the market. Now, the problem of that is that how can those with 1, 2, 5 foundation actually have relevant experience? So some opt to go out and get outsource that. Others, I don't know how they do, but it's frustrating for the client. And you can see that as well in the lower bracket. There's actually 28 firms that handle 25 or fewer, 22 manage 10 or less. So clearly, it is very challenging for the market to be competent at that level. Now, the hope is that it grows, but I think it's worth pointing out that this exists because it's a potential risk for the market when there is too many bottom feeders. The trend is a little bit the same if you look at the other jurisdictions. So typically, you would have DIFC, ADGM. You look at overall, when they cross, there's only 23 CSPs today that are in both jurisdictions, which is really where you want to be if you want to be able to provide the service well. But in these numbers, there's only a few that have the technicalities, that are able to provide the service properly, and that are able to provide the service across 2 jurisdictions, because the clients should be able to choose. And ideally, you want a provider that is able to do everything in the UAE, DIFC, ADGM, Ras Al Khaimah, and tomorrow, the MCC.
Of course. Well, now that we know that, so what are the keynotes that we can share here with family business and clients alike? What do they need to watch for, I would say, when choosing the right service provider?
So what is interesting is that, well, some people come to us, so they come to peers that are equally sophisticated and everything is all right. So you can start there. But it doesn't all necessarily stop there. You can actually move to someone after you have set up the moment you see to face problems. So I think it's important to be honest about what you expect out of your providers. Maybe you have a strong infrastructure internally, you do not need much. Many clients actually need a little bit more because it's reasonably new as a tool. It's a little bit more technical than a holding, and the UAE with its wave of regulations, reporting, and corporate tax exemption makes it a little bit more complicated to navigate. So let's talk about 4 key points I would like to underline. 1, compliance visibility. This is not just about getting license and renewing license. There's an entire compliance calendar attached to every structure, particularly those operating in DIFC and ADGM. If today you operate a foundation and you do not have a compliance calendar, or your provider did not point that out, I would worry. That's the first step we actually do with clients. We set it up and we have a compliance calendar mapped out step by step, everything that needs to be done. Second, ensure that the structure is fit for purpose. Sounds logical. You go and you want to build something around your needs, but have your needs been properly captured? Are they reflected in the bylaws? If the bylaws and charter have been drafted by lawyers, chances are it works, it has been done properly. But what you do not want is just a template document. 3, and that's probably the most important in terms of understanding the nature of the structure, have you taken the structure and run through a few scenarios, real life, of what would happen if a trigger event happened? So have you mapped that out, including the practical steps and control shift that would follow incapacity, for example, someone passing away, for example. It can be a dispute, it can be a divorce, etc. So this is the sort of stuff we discuss with clients systematically. We notice that only a few people are focusing on that. We think it's essential. You need to be practical. And that typically can be done after the structure has been set up so that you can fine tune it and you end up with a structure 2.0. It's called a health check. And then, there is tax now, there is substance. So you need to look at it from a tax compliance standpoint. This is part of the compliance calendar we talked at the top, but also assess potential cross-border tax frictions. Typically, if the founder or one of the council members sits abroad in a high-tax jurisdiction, this needs to be assessed. Does that have an impact on the structure? Maybe not. Perhaps yes, in which case you may want to be aware of the consequences and potentially act.
Okay, good. I think you partially answered something else that I was going to ask, but what if the client has already retained a provider, set up the structure, but it's not happy with it, right? Mm-hmm. Can he or she then transition to another corporate service provider? And if so, what is the process? Is it time consuming or straightforward?
So it is inevitable that when you evolve a business, that you may want at some stage to move to other providers. When you are a startup, you are likely to rely on different sort of providers than when you are a high growth business or when you are a listed company. That's just the nature of the beast, and it's very rare for someone to stay with the same provider over a lifetime unless that provider actually grows with you or grows around you. So to your question, about 1 foundation out of 3 that we service today at MHQ has started its life somewhere else. It's staggering number. And most of it came last year as a result of compliance issues, tax, and understanding of the structure, because people started to live with the structure, started to realize it's not necessarily easy to, for example, transfer real estate. And you are well positioned to do that. You do a lot of conveyances. People came to us initially, so well, our people tell us it's not possible, but yes, it is, but you just need some practical experience. So how hard is it? It's actually very easy. Right now in ADGM, you have a CSP regime. So the CSP is in charge of everything. So you can just shift from one to the other. There's a smooth transition process that we have at the firm and we can take over anytime. And then we would see how we can value engineer all the offering and improve the service, the bang for the buck, as we call it. And the DIFC is coming to that system as well. So in April, there will be, we hope, a CSP regime launch where people will have to go through a CSP. So that will be a perfect time to reassess your ecosystem. Is it fit for purpose, or do you want to upgrade, play in the big leagues, and be with a firm that actually knows a little bit more than the Lambda Joe on the streets?
Great. Good. Well, thank you, Jan, for your input. And I'm looking forward to our next webcast where we will discuss the Foundation's compliance obligations with one of our directors, Marcia Rocha. Thanks
Perfect.
again.
Thank you.
Bye.